Hi, welcome to this episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee. I have a lot of meat again prepared, some deep understandings of Torah. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd encourage you to. I have quite a few playlists that will help, I believe, the elect get oil in their lamp, get some very deep understandings of what is truly going on. So today I want to talk about, I have a title again for this teaching. It's called America is Not Babylon. Now I had started to unpack a little bit about, in the early church, and we had Paul, who is sort of under fire these days. There's a level of research that is trying to minimize or distort, in my opinion, what he is saying. But even larger than that, there's a character that the texts talk about called Simon Magus, and I was Simon the sorcerer, because Magus is a sorcerer. I was going to unpack that, but then before I get there are some very fundamental foundations. Remember, we have to learn precept by precept that I wanted to impart. So I want to go right into it because like this whole, there's a big teaching today, America is Babylon. Well, no, we're not Babylon. People don't understand what Babylon as an archetype represents. Look at, how can it say scripturally, come out of her, my people, come out of Babylon? Yet none of us, if we live in America, we live in Babylon. So right there, you have a disconnect between the literal level and what, and I go through parts, I've explained all this, the deeper level understanding. So what does it mean to come out of Babylon, her, my people? And what does Babylon represent? And once I think we can understand that as an archetype, what Babylon represents or symbolizes, it'll be easier to go into and truly understand, because sometimes the simplistic answer is totally correct. But if you don't understand the depth of what that answer is saying, then you're still kind of in the first grade level. So this is one of the things I try to explain, that Torah level understanding is a progression. You climb a ladder, you go step by step, precept by precept into higher levels of understanding. And you can totally relate it to a child who enters school in kindergarten. And if they really come out the whole other end after much study and application and discipline and all these things, they will come out with, let's say, a PhD or a master's or something, a high level. And this is the same concept of becoming like a Torah scholar, someone who is able to handle the meat of the word, who can teach the word, who can divide asunder between soul and spirit, many of these deep concepts, and who can rightly divide. If you're going to separate soul and spirit, you got to be able to rightly divide it, right? So, so much intro. Let's get right into it. So Nimrod's a biblical character. We have really and truly two verses about him, basically, in the text, in some of the authorized canons, and yet he's a pivotal character to understand, and he is the archetype. He is let's call him he's the Antichrist, the first Antichrist, again, after the flood. And we know that there are many Antichrists. So what does this word, and that's a New Testament word, but there has to be an Old Testament counterpart. So what is it saying? Nimrod, as the story goes, he was the first, again, to come out of the flood, to become a world ruler, who was, again, going back to all the bad practices or the sinful Torah-breaking lifestyles that had happened, that had caused the flood in the first place. It says that he was 2/3 angel and 1/3 man. Here we have a complete hybridization going on, impure mixtures. There's a lot of words to describe this, where he is genoses and species are being mixed. And again, so you always have to, when you think of that concept, you always have to include. See, my thing about when I want to say America is Babylon, let me say this one thing: the fundamentalists are going to get us all killed. Because it's not on the fundamentalist level, all right? It's mixing a species doesn't always mean, yes, it does mean on one application, GMOs, mixing, different kinds of species of plants or different kinds of species of animals, correct. But it also means different kinds of species of angelic orders or of living beings, living creatures. This is something that the Western mind, the church, we just don't really understand the different levels or realms where there are living created beings. You can call them angels, intelligent, sentient beings. And when you start mixing those, that's when you really have a problem, especially with Yahweh. And that's, of course, what had started to really happen in the flood, giants and all sorts of beasts. And what is the word? There's a word, chimeras. Okay, so we have this guy Nimrod, who is a historical character. Now, I'm not saying that, but see, what you understand, the other thing we have to always remember is we are a body, a soul, and a spirit. So as much as what your body does from the supernal perspective or from the Father, he is seeing your soul and he's also seeing your spirit. So when I walk around and move in this dimensionality of physicality, what most Western Christians or secular people are very, this is why it says babies understand. They think it's only what's going on in the physical. But when I'm moving around and thinking, I am influencing and being influenced by spheres or dimensions that are affecting my soul life and my spirit. All right. So it all is combined. It's all going on at the same time. You cannot separate. This says soul and spirit. But too much intro again here. Let's just stick. When Nimrod is the archetype of a world who completely rebels against Yahweh Elohim and his Torah lifestyles and Torah rules of engagement, so to speak. Everything is supposed to reproduce in its kind. All right. So, but he also is called a hunter of men's souls. And a lot of the information, this is what I was going to go back to my point, in the extra biblical text, it'll totally flush out so much more. And the sages have so much more information about Nimrod in the other writings. So you have to read the other writings. See, that's why, again, it's a progression. In kindergarten, you learn your letters. By the time you're in college, you're reading huge volumes of text, combinations of letters that have huge amounts of information in them. So this is why it is important for the elect person today. You have to read. You have to get out of the boat, out of your canon, and you have to read these texts so you can gain greater wisdom and understanding. Now it says the beginning of his kingdom, and all right, from the hunter of men's souls, is because Nimrod as an archetype for Hasatan, again, an antichrist, a rebel, someone who is a leader of men, and in here we're talking about a rebel leader. He is a hunter of men's souls to bring them down to the pit. This is what it's talking about, because remember, Yahweh is interested in saving our soul. Hasatan is interested in ruining and taking our soul down to the pit. So these are some of the larger concepts. You have to keep this in mind. The good guys and the bad guys, and what are their goals? And their goals are extremely momentous for us to always keep before our eyes. That's why the text, keep Yahweh's Torahs always before your eyes, because it's very important, the consequences of getting off the path, so to speak. So it says here in Nimrod about him in Genesis 10:10, we'll start there. It says, the beginning of his kingdom was Babylon. Now see, when you understand, yes, there was a historical guy, Nimrod, the first rebel again, and he says that he settled in the plain, in the field, in the land of Shinar, all right? And from that land, he went forth, it says, into Assyria, and he built Nineveh, and then it mentions a bunch of other cities. Now, what this is really talking about, because again, you're not just a stick figure. He's not just a guy in a body. he is also a soul, and he is influenced spiritually. So he becomes the archetype, all right, for someone who is again influenced by the demonic realm. See, this is the main thing of real. We are in a dualistic battle here between, let's say, the left side and the right side, between good and evil, the good angel and the bad angel. This is all kind of ways in which the texts are trying to describe it. But here again, you have Nimrod, who truly becomes the leader and ensconced and in full, even, cultural infiltration and manifestation of the demonic forces again in the world. He just like opens the door wide open and brings it all in. And so Babylon, right away you have to understand, is a code word for the demonic realm. See, that's how this thing, so you have Nimrod, could be an archetype for another Hasatan, or under the influence of Hasatan. Now these represent, I said, like the demonic realms, and it says that he built a city and a tower. So how these words are used, they're taking this whole concept and they're applying it in a way that allows you to kind of go up and down on the scale here. Are we just talking, because I go by this thing called pards, which is there's different levels of meaning, and the deeper levels will explain to you what's going on in the astral levels of our mind, our soul, our spirit. We sin. Yeshua himself said, for out of the heart are the issues of life. Sin begins in the heart. It begins in our soul. We make a choice. We have free will. We decide to do something. So obviously, this is all building. Here you have Nimrod, who is the third generation, the son. You have Ham, of the sons of Noah that came off the ark. You had Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And Ham and his sons, Canaan and Mitzrayim, begin to infiltrate and spread out on the earth. And this is the point. And they are again beginning to interface, become under the influence of the demonic realms again. All right. And then you have Nimrod, who literally crosses the line, hibernizes himself, so to speak, becomes a hunter of men's souls now. He founds a kingdom on the earth. Again, we always know the demonic realms ultimately refers to, fallen entities in the heavenly realms. But now he is beginning to build a city and a tower again on the earthly level. And that's why you get the word Babel. You get the word Babylon is always associated with Rabylon, and that is with Nimrod, and that is always associated again with now. You're playing with fire. You are beginning to come under the influence and give yourself over to the demonic realms. Now, to a place to settle. So a lot of these, this is why, and I read a lot of this is why I read a lot in the Zohar. So I do hope you would subscribe to my channel and listen to my playlists, some especially all about this Jewish mysticism. And I'm not talking about the Aleister Crowley form of, occulted and profaned understanding. All right. I'm talking about true Jewish mysticism, understanding of the dimensions and the realms that have come to us through the Torah keeping scholars and sages who have redacted this information generationally. And a lot of it comes down to us in the Zohar and a lot of these writings. That's what that is. All right. So in a lot of this understanding, you can get in it because they flush it out. Because this is, like I said, to get into this kind of deeper understanding, you need a lot of a foundation, and you need to be able to, that's why it says no coward will enter the kingdom of heaven. When this is what David, and to be a warrior, I'm trying to say, you cannot be afraid of your enemy. Right? This is the phrase of Hasatan. You can be wary, you can be, you don't want to get comfortable, but there has to be a level. There's sort of this between, you're not afraid and cowering, but you're certainly not, you don't take your guard down. This is another really important principle that I could get more into that. I can't. just to keep this short and simple. So let us make a name for ourselves. This is where they've said that they built a city. Now the tower and the city represent something. Okay, and it doesn't, like when they say America, all because the two towers fell, so that makes this Babel. It's like, Christian, you have no clue. You're an Ephraim, you have no clue. You cannot make up what these symbols mean. All right, this is one of my biggest things. It's already established. The keys of the kingdom have already been established. You can't, once a key is made, it's made. And to make that key open up that lock, you can't use another key that you just made that has no relationship to the original key. It's not going to work. So these are keys. When I talk about the keys of the kingdom, the way I'm explaining the way these words and these concepts are used. So we have, let us make a name for ourselves. The word name, or a name, is in Hebrew, this is a very important concept. This is why, Yahweh is constantly changing people's names, because he's changing their destiny and their essence. This is very important. This is, we get a new name. Your name represents your essence. It represents your root from the supernal world, so to speak, okay? And let's go this way. Genos, classification, we classify animals according to their genos, their root system. That's why you call, a giraffe and a duck. They have totally different root systems, all right, even though they're all animals. But even though all souls, this is important to understand, but when you get into these supernal realms and these angelic, the hosts of heaven, armies, host is a word for armies, which armies, come on, we're talking about entities here. They all have a root from an essence, all right? But this is what's important, because what he did was, it doesn't, see the translation, let's make a name for ourselves. What he's saying is, let us make a name. Let us take one of these roots of divinity, these roots, these heavenly rooms, and let's make this our Elohim. See, this is so what would Nimrod do? His Elohim, quote unquote, his God. Do you think that's Yahweh Elohim, the Father? No, we know it's Hasatan, who we know is a created being and is lower, all right? So to take on a name for yourselves means you're going to pick your God, your Elohim, and it works in the Old Testament, an idol, which is a created being, and this is going to become your Elohim. See, so this is, again, these are all the things that Nimrod is introducing into the world. Again, he's in this way, in some of the more actual, Baal worship or idol worship and worshiping other gods, lesser Elohims. And I have been through this, and I'll get to it again. These 70 gods, small g, lower Elohims of the nations. All right. So this is it. So when the Bible is talking about Babylon, and especially in the prophecies, and Isaiah, talks a lot about Babylon, and when the city and the tower. Now, the other thing I have to say about this, everything this is back to nature. Everything has a shadow. And this is, again, the whole concept of the dualistic nature of this hologram cosmos we live in, holographic cosmos. There is true light, and then there is a shadow. There's a darkness. So Hasatan is always shadowing, imitating, and try and get people to believe that the shadow is really the reality or the truth or what you should, and not the actual light itself. This is another way that they try to explain this whole dynamic or situation that we're in. Now, since the fall, the demonic realms got the upper hand over the Adam, over the race of beings that Yahweh Elohim created in his image and likeness, Adam, and then so we're Adamites, Adam. This is what a way of the words used. There's a race of beings, but there are other species, race. We know that there's the cherubim. There is the seraphim. There are other races, species, whatever you want to call it, of living beings. Now, the archetype, again, of 6 working days and well, let's just take the typology of the week, because what I want to say, why it's important that we understand we're not Babylon, because America, it's so much bigger than one nation, or one nation against another nation down here on the earthly plane. I mean, it is truly the ultimate, we're going up into the ultimate battle between the demonic realms and their reign of power, and Yahweh Elohim, and he's going to put down all rule and authority that is contrary to him. That's where we're going. So the 6 days, and this is why a lot of the like the temple, the doors of the temple were shut for 6 days, 6 weekdays, 6 working days, but they would be open on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath. See, because this is all representing something. So when Yahweh had to, and I can't get deep, but when he had to put a flaming sword and he had to cut off the access to the tree of life, he had to shut that gate, so there was no access to it. This whole thing is representing, because Hasatan was told that for 6 days, or they were all told prophetically, that it was going to take 6,000 years, 6 working days, because we know 1,000 years is a day is 1,000 years. This is all part of the way the language is used in the archetypes. That Hasatan was going to have dominion ruling over this world. This is he has this time frame. He is the God of this world. World does not represent, it's not the same word as earth. It's a much larger word, but he and his minions have authority over the world, which is really the whole world of physicality, the lower level dominion, the world of Assyria, Assyria, if you are more Kabbalistically advanced in understanding the 4 worlds. All right. So the Shabbat, the Sabbath, is closed for 6 days. But there will be there will be a 7th day, the day of rest. And again, let me go back to you can see this understanding playing out in a lot of things when Hasatan came, and in the temptation Yeshua was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, again, in the wilderness, which is a code word for the world, which is hugely demonically influenced. And Hasatan can say, look, if you will worship me, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world. He took him on a high tower. All right, I was going to unpack that. Tower and city. This is really deep. First of all, you build a tower in a city, and it's referring to on an earthly level in the world of Assyria. Okay, not Assyria, Assyria. See, here I go with my pronunciation. If you're listening to me, I'm sorry, that is my weakest point. I have a real hard time with pronunciation. I think I have a learning disability. They say everybody's got some. Well, I've got that one. So I'm not saying Assyria. It's a world of Assyria, and it is the lower level of the worlds in the Kabbalistic 4 worlds. But that's for those who are more advanced and can understand that. Anyways. But what I want to tell you is that Satan had power, and he had the authority to give it whoever he wanted. So obviously he gave it to Nimrod, because Nimrod was one of his boys, one of his, so when it says you sell your soul to the devil, this was really real. This is really real realities that people do. And so we need to understand a lot of this language on some deeper levels. But to build a city and a tower, you do it. And the city and the tower also represents, this is why, let me just say, in the Freemasons, and they always have the, what do they call those things? An obelisk. And then there's always sort of like a circle. There's always 2 things that go together, a city and a tower. And really, this is representing on one level, because there's always so many levels of meaning. You got to keep them all straight. It's sort of a phallic symbol and a symbol of the female, the womb. There is definitely, in order to engender a new person or a soul, you've got to have a male and a female combined. That's really how it's done, a city and a tower. So when you're building in the earthly plane on one level, a kingdom, so Hasatan is trying to build, he's always trying to build kingdoms on earth that he can control. And they're going to be populated with people. That's the whole point. A city and a tower. It takes it. So it's so interesting how the sages use these words on so many parallel levels. All right. But what I'm just trying to say is there is, and that yet at the same time, Yahweh, we're told he's making a city, a new city. And because that he is a high tower. So again, you have to understand, it's dualistic. There is always a negative demonic application of the term or the word, and there always is a holy and a righteous and a pure understanding of the term. And you're living in one kingdom or the other kingdom. And this is so important to understand. Okay, so and so Hasatan has power to give his kingdom to whoever he wants to rule, a human ruler, to rule under his authority. So the gate to the upper world is, it always remains closed. And that's the concept why during these 6,000 years of demonic rulership control over the world, and the only way you escape it, and I'll get into this, there is a way to escape that, but is to be Torah virtuous, to live Torah and to believe Torah, and to now we can live, and with this we can eat again of the tree of life. We can have access again. We have a gate. We can get into the supernal realms again now, but that's another whole side of the story. So, but it's important that the tree of life must remain closed so that the flow, which is the river of life, see, it's another and this gets into the emanations and how the divine flows in the world, how the demonic flows in the world. See, it's all, and it really is, there's physics to it, there's great science. There is definitely, this is why I talked about rivers, channels, roads, streams, all these things, root systems, think about all these things in which conduits, things flow. Such an important concept. So the Sabbath represents the 1,000 years, the day of rest for the people of Yahweh that has been promised to them. So there will be a literal 1,000 years. So for people who are preterists who don't know what to do with the 1,000 years, you don't have a big enough, deep enough understanding of what is being encompassed in these words, in these concepts theologically. So when we are coming on to this, because we know, anybody knows we're in the zone of a 6,000 year human history. I mean, give or take, and we're trying to figure it out. I want to just say this. I want a little rabbit trail, because I'm coming to the conclusion now. When Yahweh's talking about when Yeshua says no one knows the day or the hour, when the end, like the final end, at the end of the 6,000 years, the beginning of the 7th millennial, no one knows the day. Because, as we're studying out the calendar, it turns out there are so many calendars. There's so many time. Oh my gosh, this kid's so great. Is so deeply hidden and kind of convoluted. Most Western Christians who are trying to unpack Bible prophecy don't even really understand biblically how time and the words and the letters relating to time are used. So, and we don't even know which calendar. I mean, we're all over the place today. So it's just the fact nobody's going to know the day or the hour because there's just too much confusion. Thankfully, the Father knows. The Father knows, and that's all that's sufficient. So, but I really think that that's an absolute literal and true statement. So, but we're in the zone. We're in the season. So we can't play stupid and pretend that this thing is going to go on forever. Oh, he's always been talking about he's coming, No, we're there. We're in the zone. You better be careful. My whole point of the teaching today is you better be ready, because I'm going to change on a dime. So the Sabbath represents the day of rest, literally, and it also represents the believer can, and this is what Paul is talking about, and he talks about in Hebrews, a day of rest for those, because we can enter into it. We have access now in this life and in this world to enter into the gate to the supernal worlds, to the holy divine supernal world, through the Ruach, through Shekinah, which is the Hebrew term for this. So we can have access again and get back up into our first estate or our heavenly abode. All right. So when he scattered the peoples, and then at the end, because they say that Nimrod was the builder of the Tower of Babel, and that whole, I could spend another couple of sessions on unpacking that whole thing. But basically it says that Yahweh came down, saw what they was doing, was totally unimpressed. Again, here we go again. You people are completely rebellious. And he scattered them throughout the whole earth. He changed their tongue and scattered them. And there's a lot of deep understanding in this. But basically, what you have to dualistically, what you have to understand, the scattering always happens. And I mean, on the heavenly powers, the demonic influences, the demonic hordes attached to these people. So you got to understand that, like, Shekinah rests on us. There's a whole picture. Yeshua says, like a chick, a mother chick. He's referring to the Ruach, the Shekinah, the Holy Spirit, the heavenly, the divine feminine. I mean, there's so many things. Will rest on the people of Elohim. And that's what the Balaam, I'm sorry I flip around, but if you can keep up with me, when Balaam looked at the tents of the tribes of Israel in the plain, right? They were in the plain, they were in the wilderness. I mean, God's people, we still are in this world, but the Shekinah rested on them and protected them. And there was no access. He could not curse them. He could not call down demonic realms to scatter them or influence them because they were protected. All right. So this is a really important principle. So if we're in fellowship with Yahweh and walking, whether you're an individual, family, or even a nation, so it's so important, they get to that level, a city, whatever, you can be divinely protected. There's a wall of fire around us, the heavenly angels. So divine angelic angels can protect you. The flip side is demonic realms and angels and powers can sit on you also. And because they're not there for your good, it can afflict you and punish you. And that's all part of it. So he had to scatter the heavenly powers, the demonic realms, and the rebels, the people below. Now it says in Isaiah, I'm going to read verses, because in understanding this God, again, Nimrod is an archetype of the Antichrist, a ruler, someone who Hasatan can totally, and we've had all tons of these throughout history, cause complete chaos to happen in the world. Tahu Bahu, the final outcome of judgment, will be a complete scattering, and it will cause total chaos to rule and reign again. Anarchy, and this is the way people lose their culture, they lose their homes, they lose their lives, they lose their livelihoods, they lose their children. I mean, on every level. That's why it says that righteousness exalts a nation or a people, but demonic realms will oppress them and cause them to live, to not live Torah lifestyles and to receive blessings. So it chokes them. This is a lot of the understanding. Yet when Yahweh comes down in judgment, you better be careful, because that's it. He's scattering even them. The rebels and the powers just get scattered. And that's what we're coming to again at this change here from the 6 days, the 6 working days, to the 7th millennial reign, that 1,000 years. But this time what we're told is a little different. He's not just going to scatter them. Or a lot of times in the text it'll say he'll cut them down to the root, cut the trees down to the root. He is going to totally uproot them. Praise Yahweh. That's why it's so exciting. He's going to uproot them, and the wicked will be no more. It's not going to be damage control. It's going to be damage problem over, done with, dealt with. All right. So let me get back to, I have 3 verses, Isaiah 25:8, Zechariah 13:2, and Isaiah 24:21. Now, there, again, all right, let me just read it. Isaiah 25:8, he, meaning Yahweh, will swallow up death forever. Okay, so we have that whole archetype of death. As he's going to swallow up death forever, right? Zechariah 13:2 says, I will eliminate the spirit of impurity from earth. And Isaiah 24:21 says, in that day. Now that, again, this is the day that we're all anticipating. the day of final judgment. And I believe, on every level, it's going to 24 hours to a day is also used of 100 years. It goes into 1,000 years. It's also used of an age, of a season of time. I mean, it has so many applications. But in that day, Yahweh will punish the host of heaven above and the kings of the earth below. So now let me tie these three in together, because again, this gets us into, again, Babylon is another code word, like I have said, for the demonic realms ruling and reigning on earth. If you're in Babylon, that means you're being, your root system, where's it? You're sucking from, I mean, seriously, I don't want to say this, but you're sucking from the tip. This is what it's saying, a flow, an emanation. And this is where it gets in. Oh, see, they just keep dovetailing all these words. Milk and honey, wine, all these things is explaining. You're ingesting some kind of flow, some kind of emanation, some kind of something inside of yourself. Does that make sense? I'm trying to say they're not. The one thing about, once you begin to get these archetypal theological concepts of how these words are used and what they're representing, it's really easy to go into any other archetypal, parabolical language. Because like I said before, the prophets, oh my God, they drive me crazy. They'll use vegetative parabolic language. So you got the fig tree and the vine, and you've got, the branch and all these things, but they're represented. Or you can go into architectural parabolic language, and he's building a house, and there's a city and a tower, and they all represent things, right? Or you can go into the animal kingdom, and you've got, beasts, and you've got wild beasts, and then you have, the serpent. And so all of these streams of parabolic language are really talking about the same reality. That's what makes the Bible so fascinating, interesting, and deep, and so brilliant. So anyways, that's my plug for the Bible today. All right, let's start with this. I will swallow up death forever. What is first to understand, the hosts of heaven, in sticking with Isaiah 24:21, in that day, Yahweh will punish the host of heaven above and the kings of the earth below. I mean, there's so much information right there. You have geography, and you have the hosts of heaven, which is a whole, again, that is a huge category of understanding that, unfortunately, the Western Christian mindset, they're really pretty much clueless at this point. The ancients had such an understanding of the supernal realms and how we interface with them, how they interface with us, all this stuff, and they wrote these texts and they knew what they were talking about. We've got to get back up to speed here, people. This is what I said, with these fundamentals that are keeping us in kindergarten in terms of understanding, these teachers today, you just got to up your game. So the host of heaven refers to, and I have done some teachings on this, and it's in my playlist, the 70 shepherds. All right. The 70, Enoch is one of the first to flush this out. The 70 shepherds and their prince. Now, let me just say this again for those who are a little more Kabbalistic in their understanding, how groupings of numbers, because numbers are another way to categorize. There's 72 is such an important number in symbolatry, right? Especially number symbology. But it refers to the 70 shepherds. These are the princes, the chiefs, the heads of the nations. All right, Yahweh put these 70 shepherds over the nations at the time of Nimrod because they were not going to follow him. It's becoming apparent again that obviously this Adamic mankind race that he had created was still going to continue to go south, continue to rebel against him. So, and they did not want him to be their Yahweh Elohim. He put over them 70 shepherds, or 70 of these and high angelic ordered beings. All right. This is what you see in the Old Testament. This is what you see with all these tutelary deities This is what they're worshiping, right? This is what polytheism and pagan religions, they really are getting into, and worshiping the name. Remember, we began to the essence, the root system, the demonic, the lower demonic entities that are all part of running this big cosmos. People don't, oh my gosh. All right. So this is what's referred to in the 70 shepherds or the hosts of heaven. He's going to punish them. All right. Because many of them have gone unto the side of Hasatan. Right. And they do not lead the peoples in righteousness. I mean, just look at the world today. It's quite obvious. All right. And the kings of the earth. And this does refer to Adamites, to the people that live in each generation, the wicked generation. So you have, and they always, kings of the earth who are pairing up with the fall and the hosts of heaven, because this is who he's going to punish. You always realize you're talking about a Nimrod, a character who has totally given himself over to Luciferian rulership and identity and essence, and the hosts of heaven. So this is something we're beginning to finally understand. People are beginning to say that, you know, the people that are ruling us are not even humanoids per se. There's all, again, we're back to the days of Noah. These are mixed hybrid entities that are ruling over us. I mean, that's a lot of what's being pegged. And people need to understand that the Bible's completely 100% aware of this. And it's just using different kind of words and codes to describe this phenomena. But we better get up to speed. Teachers today better get up to speed. So, but what I want to say here is, in this pact, in this, because we are a body, a soul, and a spirit, the texts are very specific when they're referring to the person, Nimrod, let's say the body, the kingdom that they're emanating from, Babylon. They're emanating and building a demonic realm on earth, you know, and it's spiritual. Okay, so this I was doing 72. I'm sorry. I know I have a lot of people who have a hard time, the fact that I have a hard time being linear. What can I say? The 72, remember, 70, and these are the archons, so to speak, the Gnostic literature, even they have this understanding. And 2, this gets down to Samuel and Yeshua, or Michael the archangel. You have so 72, you get 72 because you have the archons, and then you have rulers over them. These are Michael, let's say, and Samuel. So they're paired up. So that's why 72 is such an important number, because what it represents. I mean, if a picture can tell 1,000 words, well, a number can also tell 1,000 words. I'm talking about the story, this is what it means to be initiated. All right, people stop being afraid, because it means I can just say 72, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have to spend a whole hour and all trying to explain and unpack and unwrap. You've already got that. You know, you've already had 10th grade calculus, or, you know, or geometry, so you automatically can go there. So between 72. So what I want to say here, the destroyer, all these words that we get in the text, destroyer, the angel of death, the evil serpent, the Hasatan, the Samuel, the evil impulse, these are all words that are used to talk about Lucifer, his dominion, his domain, and his armies, so to speak. So all of us have now been influenced by, because we're born into this world, quote unquote, born into this world of sin, now this fallen world with our fallen nature. We all have this influence of the evil impulse. When I will eliminate the spirit of impurity from the earth, what the prophet Zechariah is telling us is that, yeah, Yahweh has told us there is an end game. This is the point. There's an end game, and he will eliminate this evil impulse, this entrance, this gate, this root system that grows in us of the spirit of impurity. The spirit of impurity and the evil impulse are the same thing. All right. Isaiah, it says it will swallow up death forever. Isaiah is saying the angel of death is the destroyer. There is actually an entity with the angel of death. It's Hasatan. See, I just want these things, and they're all really just talking about the fallen, rebel, demonic angels, their hosts, and those in the earth, on our level in the earth who work in league with them. And there is an end game. And he has promised that he will, the verse that says, hold on, let me just make. Well, he will put his spirit. So in other words, this is the whole point of the new birth. It's like when Yeshua came, and for the nations, for the lost sheep and the nations, he opened up the gate, Shekinah again, and he put his spirit within us so that we can rise above. And this is the whole concept. You got to get above, all of this lower level dross, demonicness, the lower fallen nature, all these things. So they're all like, these teachers, they're not confused. They are able to move rapidly from one parabolic understanding to another parabolic understanding, and sometimes in the same verse. And most of us are just left like, what the heck did that just say? All right. But that day of being stupid is over. We can't have this information today. Keys to the kingdom are coming back. So in other words, so what I want to get into when it says that Babylon is fallen, Babylon is fallen. Okay, what are we talking about? We're talking about the day, all right? I think the day and the hour that only Yahweh knows, where it's done. The trumpet's going to sound, and it's going to sound in every single, this is why it's not a human shofar trumpet that represents. When the decree goes from the throne room, it is time. It's finished. The kingdoms of this world are going to be under now the total rule and authority of of Christ. The kingdoms of the world become the kingdoms of Christ. This is what it's talking about. Babylon will be destroyed. It will fall. That's the tower that's going to fall in a single hour, in a day. And again, those words are not used just on their literal level, all right? Because, so the day and the hour, this stuff is so deep, people. And this is why it says that uninitiated novices should not teach the word of Elohim, because you just end up confusing people, and you end up causing more and more schisms, because you interject falsehood. Be that as it may. Okay, so the saint, now it says very clearly that once permission has been granted to the destroyer, to the angel of death, to destroy, to punish, to bring judgment on a person, a family, a people group, a tribe, a nation, the world, or as we're talking about in the day of the Lord, when Yahweh says it's over, all right? It's told to the righteous that, so how do you protect yourself? It says that the saint must hide himself. This is what Moshe, in the Old Testament, there's verses of this in Exodus 22:12. It says, none of you go out of your house until morning. This is what he's telling them now, that Egypt is going to come under judgment. Yahweh is going to totally judge not only the powers in heaven, the demonic realms that are over Israel, but also the people. And if you want to be protected, you better put the blood of the Lamb on your doorpost. So when the destroyer, when Hasatan, his armies go by and they have full permission to destroy to the uttermost, how are you going to protect yourself? See the symbolism of this by the blood of the Lamb. All right. And we are currently under this administration, or the time frame we live in now. We believers who have been sanctified through his blood, who have the gate to life has been opened up through the name of Yeshua, also again through the blood of the Lamb, we are covered. So when they're saying that, in other places it says keep, in some of the Talmudic passages alluding to, they'll say, he's saying to keep your feet indoors, or do not walk in the middle of the road, or it says do not go out of your house. This is all telling you, you better stay, I say, in the house, under the protection of Shekinah, under the covering of Elohim, because if you don't, if you go out there, you will be seen by the demonic realms. They have authority. They're just going to mow you down. So this is, and it got, again, in a lot of the ways where we have this whole controversy about the rapture and about people, the timing is coming. But on a deeper level, we need to understand what's more important here. All right. Is that you are found in the house, hidden. When Paul says, that you would be hidden in Christ, right? That means that you are covered, you're hidden. The destroyer, the death angel, at time of final judgment. And this is even the same thing. To die in Christ is better, because then again, the death angel cannot take you down to the pit. You will go up to paradise. See, again, sages know exactly what they're saying. So this is why the destroyer, he will, if you're not covered, if you're not protected, he will come into your house and strike you down. When one sins is covered, even though when you're covered by the blood, when you're in the house, when Shekinah overshadows you, when you have this wall of fire around you, whatever language, the destroyer cannot harm you. So this is where, even in the last days here, when Babylon is about to fall, it's going to fall, which means the whole the influence of the demonic realm, Hasatan, it's over. He's going to be rooted out, locked up, for 1,000 years in his host of angels, and the people, there's going to be complete chaos. Again, it does bring total chaos, these judgments in the world. You think Egypt, they were left in shambles after Israel, the people of Yahweh left, and they left that nation in shambles, and Yahweh has said, and many times, Egypt is another code word, really, for under the influence, like Babylon, because all of Ham's son, and I'm going to get to this, I'm sorry that these are such long videos, but I have a heart and a passion to share my understanding. And I think it's very valuable, and I think if you will stick with it, you will get some benefit, blessing. But anyways, when there is chaos, when there is destruction, when there is judgment, it does influence on every level, and it's not pretty. You want to be in the house. So the ark, Noah had an ark to protect him during the flood, when the upper waters and the lower waters came together and they destroyed the known world at that time. All right, we're told it's not going to be by water this time, but it's going to be by fire. And I don't have it, but I'm getting to unpack fire, what that represents. It's not talking about the world, one big forest fire kind of thing. Fire, again, it's another word, and it's even larger than water, higher, because fire represents his fiery angels, which represents the left side, which represents the angels of judgment, are going to be unleashed on the whole world. People, there will be no place to hide except in him. That's why he's, she was holding out and said, come while you can now, because the door is going to be shut. There is an end game. There is a day, a point in time, when the doors to the ark, the doors to the upper world, to Shekinah, however you want to picture this, is going to be shut. And your name is sealed. Your essence, your roots, what you've been grown, is going to be sealed forever. This is such serious business, people. Oh my gosh. So Samuel, and at this time, Samuel will be punished. And it says here that he will punish the kings of Edom. And this is another way that where Edom is another code word for all of this, because we know Esau went and joined, because a lot of times they make these archetypes, they follow the pattern of the person who lives it. All right. We know Esau went off and married into the tents, into the houses of the Canaanites. I mean, you understand, into, the fallen peoples that were on that were way. I mean, these people now had so many generations living this way of in rebellion to Elohim and anti-Torah and all this. So when this time comes, when he is going to punish the host of heaven, and this is why he calls it the captain, in this way he's going to, with the breath of his mouth, destroy the Antichrist, which is really, that's a poor, we should use Old Testament words because it gives us a much better and more concrete understanding when the princes of Edom, and I'll tell you, at the time of the Roman Empire, the word Edomites, which has always been associated with Canaanites, which has always been associated with the demonic, wicked, rebellious demonic people groups is morphed into what they called the Kittim at that time. The Kittim was a code word for the Romans. So I was going to say, you know, Hasatan gives his rule and his dominion to the kingdoms of this world. All right, and whether Media Persia, whether they be Rome, whether they be Babylon, it doesn't matter. But each in their time will be and has been judged. And the final one, where we are now, will be judged. And not just scattered, but pulled up by the root system. So this is, and during this time, the world turns dark and it returns to chaos and void. And that is why when we are in the ark, now whether, this is another whole point, where will we be? You know, he's making a new heaven and earth, and there's a lot other elements, to puzzle pieces to put this thing together and to get the whole holistic picture, but I'm not going to go there in this time. What I want to do is to unpack a couple of more concepts, because I'm telling you that when you come out of Babylon, because Babylon is going to fall, and this rulership of the demonic realms and the people that associate with it, like I said, are coming under judgment. That's it. Yeshua's coming with his angels, and those who are alive and remain are going to be changed. And it's not going to be like in the past. We are going to be, you know, superheroes. I mean, get ready, people. You're going to be changed. You're going to become an invincible, you know, it talks about, this is why a lot of the language of the people at the end of the age, I mean, they seem so invincible. They just have, yeah, because you are going to be, quote unquote, just like in the games they play today, you're going to be leveled up. All right. And you're going to have way more. But I didn't want to get into that either. I want to talk again about some of these words. This is important to understand this. Because that's why I say the fundamentalists are going to get us all killed. So, I mean, they start a war. So now we got America's Babylon, and even though, see, we have tons of Babylon in us. The wheat and the tares grow together until the time of the harvest, which is another analogy for all of this, the end of the age. But America, what we do represent on the flip side, and this goes over, has been going over the head of the practicing, confessing, and teaching church for over 1,800 years, 1,900 years, all right, who the Christians are, which is the house of Israel, which is the lost sheep, and all those who want to attach themselves, again, get out of the house of Babel, get out of that, get into the new house he's building, so to speak, and under the influence and to the, you know, of Yeshua and his kingdom. Remember, it says of his kingdom there will be no end, because truly, but when you get into the boys of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they're not just, their names are so loaded archetypally with so much understanding. All right. And this is why, again, you have to read, you know, again, if you go to college, you're reading huge volumes of text with tons of information. So look at it like that. If you want to be a deep Torah sage, and if you're a teacher, you better start reading the extra biblical books. It's all I can say. Because I don't know what your excuse is going to be. Whatever, before the Father. Anyway, Ham, Shem, and Japheth follow as archetypes, and very similar archetypes seen throughout all the texts. And there's a triad, 3, all right? We have this all over the place. Ham, when he saw the nakedness of his father, for which he was cursed. See, I've said this before, and this is so paramount. If the church could just grasp this much, when it talks about black and white and red, you know, like races of people, it's not talking about the physicality, the physical, my skin color. I've said this over and over again. It is talking about the condition of your soul. Because ultimately, that's what Yahweh sees. That's what he's saving. The earth, you know, this is a fallen, all the materials that go to make our bodies today are fallen in nature. In other words, they will not be immortal. They cannot live forever. But when you're changed, it's not going to be like that. So anyways, Ham represents a soul that is blackened, meaning it's full of darkness. There is no light in it. It has chosen. See, and this is why the word is, it has chosen not to have the light of life rule in it or over it. You know, if your eye be single, you'll be full of light. If the light that you're allowing into your gates, and this is the eye in that sense, I'll tell you right now, represents, is sort of a shortened code word for all your quote unquote your senses. Things come into us through our nose, our mouth, our eyes, our ears. You know, it's a way that we absorb, whether it's literally food or even concepts and ideas you read with your eyes, which is you're entering into supernal, you know, the consciousness, you know, a level of thoughts. So whatever on all these levels. But when you have a darkened soul, you have shut off, you have closed off all your gates, all your portals, you know, you've hardened your heart. You are totally under the influence of demonic realms. You are a rebel, wicked, disobedient, not having any of the light of life in you. That's what it represents, okay? So, but Japheth, in the other hand, and it also, all right, so this is what I'm going to, as I unpack these three, let me give you the three triads I'm going to end with. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. You also have this concept of body, soul, and spirit. And you also have in the text, which is a little more coded, and it talks about bone, seed, and energy. And that's why I love a lot of the Kabbalistic tech. These people, they're so savvy, even in terms of explaining the physics, not only of our world, the visible world of mass and energy that we live in, but all the other supernal worlds, because they all run basically on the same archetype. It's always the same template works in every category. So these three things I want to unpack a little bit. So you definitely don't want to be, that's why it talks about how Ham was cursed, his seed, his curse, those who followed after. So it's not literally his seed, people, in the sense of, but yes, there is an element of generationally, those who know the backstory of their, let's say, lineage, and they choose it, they decide to stay as a lawless one and join the ranks of the serpent seed. All right, this we're learning all this, and this is a true, you know, they've tried to keep it secret for a long, but everything's coming out in the open now. We know we are ruled by selected serpent seed people who sell their soul to Lucifer, and he puts them in high positions. And they rule over us, all right? Well, they're going bye-bye. Praise Yahweh, all right? But so Ham represents a very darkened soul. He represents the lowest level of the soul. So again, this is, and I have been through this, and a lot of this information you cannot even begin to understand unless you understand the many deep levels of the soul, of what's going on. You know, you've got your body, soul, and spirit, but even in soul, according to the Hebrew words that are used, there's 5 levels of soul life that human can function at. We are born together. That's why we're called a living soul. Everything is a living, because this lower level of soul life, which is called the animal soul, which is called the carnal soul, which is Hebrew word the nephesh. All right, it's the beast soul. All right, is fused together with the body, the materiality. And this all happens in your genetics too. I'm telling you, that's why I mean, that DNA code is doing a lot of stuff. It's not just making your physical flesh. It's also wiring your a nephesh soul life. And it's also all that junk DNA is carrying forward into all your past ancestral levels. And then also is the future. I mean, it's all there. But anyways, so you have, but this is referred to by the word bone. Bone, you know, it says that an Adam, Eve was made out of his bone. That's one they use that word, his, out of a rib or from the back. But this, if you understand again, Kabbalistically, the whole Adam caveman in the point, and I can't even get into this at this point, there is a location, so to speak, there is a level for this level of soul life, but it is the lowest level. within, and it is prone to evil. This is the soul of darkness, the heart of darkness. This nephesh, and it's referred to as the soil, dark soil. If you plant it, but it's prone to evil. This is our fallen nature. This is where Hasatan has absolute access, because this is what he gained in the fall. He can enter you at your nephesh level of soul life, all right, which is fused to your body. That's why addictions and that's why so much stuff happens. It's so easy to get your body and your lower level nephesh in a mess. Anyways, so you've got, and this is all referenced in these archetypal words of Ham, his sons, Mitzrayim, and Canaan, who formed two of the first cultures, of Egypt, and Canaan's son, Nimrod. And in the story, this is what it's all telling you in a large way. Nimrod was a son of Cain's, wait a minute, let me get this straight. Nimrod was the son of Canaan, who was the first son of Noah, of Ham. But Nimrod was a little different, because at this point, these people are really getting deeper and deeper back into rebellion, and they actually even discover, and this is all in the text, this is all in the backstories here, and this is where people have fleshes out that some of the watcher angel knowledge and understanding, how to use some of the supernal realms for very nefarious and evil combinations. And so Nimrod represents like a whole new level, like we're back there at the flood again level of rebellion. And that's also where the archetype is used, where it says in the days of Noah, or the days of the coming of the Son of Man, so shall it be again as it was in the days of Noah, referring again to Noah lived pre-flood and he lived after the flood. And what it parallels is telling you that this whole level of rebellion that he had to live through in the first judgment, he had to live through seeing it totally manifested again in his generations and in his children's children. So by the time you get to Nimrod, it's full blown again. You have a totally hybridized Nephilim again, really basically is what you have. So anyways, so that's on the Ham side, all right? So anybody can have a dark soul. Hey, listen, we've had some pretty nasty white people rule and ruin the world, and we've had some pretty nasty black people. I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin. So let's get over that one. Japheth, because at this point too, even if you were going to try to track this genetically, people are such a mixed bag these days, as we know from our genetics. Well, there are some pure blood, but basically everybody is such quote unquote a mixed bag. And this is where you get into Japheth. Japheth represents the second level of the soul life, the Ruach. And this is the Ruach, the spirit with a small s. I'm not talking about the Holy Spirit. When they're talking about the Holy Spirit, they put the word holy in front of it, so you know. Sorry to be talking so fast. I know I got to wrap this up soon. But Japheth represents, and it is the Ruach soul life of man, which everyone gets a Ruach and a Nephesh category soul life, which is fused together with their body. I mean, that's sort of what comes out in the big DNA, when the baby comes out and then they take their first breath. All right, that's basically what we're talking about. But this is a spirit, it's called indifferent. Many are in the valley of indecision. Most people live according to their Ruach nature, going up and down. They're not totally bad, but they're not totally good. Paul says, wretched man that I am, the things that I shouldn't do, I end up doing. The things that I know I should do, I don't do. I mean, we all have this battle. See, this is the battle that takes place in the evil impulse, in our nephesh. We have this influence of the evil impulse, and then it is our Ruach where that's what's really blowing on us. And this is the mind picture that's really trying to make you go one way or the other. Are you gonna sin, or are you not gonna sin? All right, and that's your Ruach. It's a barometer too. But anyways, that is Japheth, and he's the seed, because again, and this is what Yeshua meant for out of the heart come the issues of life. Seed is used on all these levels, and seed generates. This is the whole point. Zoe, it has life. A seed a thought, a seed, the seed of a thought that can, or the seed of a human being on every level. You have this ruach, this level of seed, which represents our soul life. All right. And this is the one that really has to be, the beast soul life is going to go down, because it's totally tampered with at this point, and it's totally fallen. We're going to get a new one, but it is the ruach that is the area that Yeshua, where people really, when you need a savior, because you need to get that ruach to be on a barometer where it's always going up. And we need help to do that, because these demonic influences are pretty strong. Anybody who's lived any amount of time can understand this. Even highly righteous people get highly tempted. Oh my gosh. And it takes a lot of work. This goes back to the concept of why there are 6 working days. You work out your salvation. People, let's get over this. You have to work hard. Oh my gosh, if you don't work at it, keeping your soul clean and devoid of demonic influences and demonic actions, takes a lot of work. So let's not play stupid anymore. All right, so back to Shem now. Shem represents, and again, we're getting now into the higher levels of the soul, and this is the neshama. This represents the breath. This is the point. If you can get your ruach to go high enough, and this is what Jacob was shown in the Jacob's ladder. This is the idea of your soul. You go up and down. He could ascend up to the top. His neshama, which is your energy, which is really equated with your spirit of the living El. All right. And this is why it's so important we understand Yeshua. The people, the lost tribes and the Gentiles were cut off from access to the neshama level of soul life. Now, this is what's so exciting. That's a statement, but that's not like, but there was always known by the, and this is one of the famous statements that in the Talmud they will ascribe to Elijah. And it's really true that any righteous or virtuous person in the world who keeps Torah at a very high level, whether they're a practicing quote unquote Jew or not, or practicing Christian, so can have access to this neshama level of soul life, because it's righteousness. Because see, the Noahide laws and the Ten Commandments, this is out there. Anyone who just really lives at a very high level of a virtuous, with faith, and then again, we got to get into, haven't even touched the concept of how this works with faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, and all these, concepts. But it is this energy, this spirit, this tree of life, this lachaim, which means life. This is what Yeshua, especially for, like I was going to say, in this time period, that all Gentiles and all lost have access to this spirit now through the finished work of Yeshua, Messiah ben Joseph. Praise Elohim for that he did that. Anyone who wants to be a righteous soul, like a Jew, a believing, practicing, virtuous Jew, automatically has access to this level of soul light. This level of soul light will get you above all the levels, the fallen that are going to come under judgment. So in other words, this is the arc. That's what I'm trying to say. If you want to get out of Babylon and get somewhere, get out of Babylon. Get out of the influence and acting according to these demonic realms and all their anti-Torah on every level, and get the breath of life, which will include, which again will stabilize, will put you in the ark, so to speak, above. I think this is sort of in the rapture, they think they're going to go somewhere per se. I do believe Yahweh can protect his own. He puts us in a barn. He puts, stay in your house, get in the house of Shekinah, and stay there. Don't you dare put a foot out in the wilderness or in the places that are going to come under judgment. All right, and that's where we are. So I say, let the towers fall. And when they do, the only safe place is to be in him, Yeshua ben Joseph. There's no other name whereby men can be saved. And I just want to see you up there and we can be in the Torah schools and really know this and flush this out. So much more. It'll be great. So on that note, shalom and blessing. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube. And I also have a blog that I will put in all the links to get more information. Shalom.